Yeah, so traditional leadership has been what style of leader are you? Are you a servant leader? Are you a transformational leader? Are you a conscious leader? There's all these different, are you a directive leader, tell people what to do? So there have been, traditional leadership has been, what style are you? What traits do you need to have? And what skills do you need to have? That's what we would call a three-dimensional leader, which normally occurred in a business model called a hierarchy. So in the hierarchy, you would have traditional top-down command and control, do as you're told, will manage you, right? In some cases, fear-based, right? And then if you were to say, if you are a CEO or a C-suite leader, and you are managing in that three-dimensional world, what would be the one word that would describe your relationship to power? In my mind, it's called coercive. Do as you're told is coercive. Out of a coercive environment like that, what happens? People are less engaged, people are less connected, people are disempowered.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Manage Self, Lead Others podcast with Nina Sunday, CSP, for experienced and aspiring people managers. This show helps you explore ways to become a more intentional leader. Each episode, host Nina Sunday speaks with some of the brightest business minds on the planet who share a passion to elevate and transform team culture. Workplace culture hides in plain sight. Is yours flourishing? Join the movement to make your workplace a better place to work. Are you ready? Because it's time to manage self, lead others.
Welcome, Dan Silberberg, to your episode on Manage Self, Lead Others, and let's keep going.
Awesome. So I want to explore the possibility that if you are a C-suite leader, or even if you are a leader, and everyone is, and we'll get into that, we are somewhat programmed by early childhood and our belief system. So we take the early childhood and the belief system, that's kind of who we are, that's how we think, that's how we behave, that's how we see the world. And then we take that three-dimensional leader play, and I say it's enterprise suicide in the 21st century. So why do I say that? Well, we're in a world very different today than previous. So today we're in a world of disruption. We have geopolitical disruption, we have social disruption, we have economic disruption, we have political disruption, climate change. There are multi-dimensions of disruption, right? And every one of them for a C-suite leader particularly could be a full-time job. Mm-hmm. To have 7 or 8 of them all at once is difficult.
It's an onslaught. It's a tsunami.
Right? So we have this foundation of the disruption. So now if we elevate above the foundation of disruption, what is the temporal world we operate in? Mm-hmm. It's volatile. It's uncertain. It's unpredictable. It's highly complex. And there's a lot of ambiguity. So now as a leader, if I'm going to do top-down command and control, do as you're told, take a look at the enterprise today and see if you can imagine in your imagination, what does an iceberg look like? Here's the water level, 10% is above and 90% is below. So you in the C-suite are probably seeing 10% of what's happening in your company. 90% is underneath with the people closest. So your salespeople probably have a whole better idea of what feedback they're getting from customers than you sitting isolated in a C-suite, right? And you can go through each functional area and take a look at the different areas of your business. So now we need to look at a business model idea change. We also need to look at you as a leader change. So now some of the things that were less needed in the 20th century, we didn't have a digital world. So now critical thinking and analytic is core. We didn't have necessarily so much social emotional intelligence. Now, because of 5 generations in the workforce, if we're not flexible in understanding the different generations, then we're going to have a pretty toxic culture, right? So now we came out of the 20th century. That was what's called a complicated world. What do I mean? Well, if you took a look at the Industrial Revolution, that was about production. That was the assembly line.
Yep.
Very complicated to put a car together. Lots of different material, lots of different pieces that go together. But once it was engineered, you were done.
Yes, true.
It wasn't complex, it was complicated. Yeah.
Right.
We're in a world of speed of change, technology, speed of change. It's complex, it's not complicated, because what you settle in on today in an hour could change, in 10 minutes could change, in 10 days.
And also, it's not a black and white solution. It's an evolving solution that changes as the situation evolves.
Yes, it's iterative, and that's why it's multidimensional. So now we have a foundation. Now we have an environment defined. Now we have some of the skills and context. If that weren't enough for you in the C-suite, let's go up a layer and let's now look at technology. We have VR and AR. We have AI. We have ML, machine learning, right? We have quantum computing. We have data science and digital analytic. Anybody understanding why command and control might not be optimal?
Well, the trouble with command and control, if you think about transactional analysis, that's parent talking to child rather than adult to adult. And if you turn your team into children, they won't think for themselves. They'll wait for orders.
Well, not only that, but again, let's talk about, are your people committed and dedicated? We have a whole generation who goes, I only work 9 to 5. I don't do anything more than what I'm asked. I don't work on weekends. I don't have a work ethic that baby boomers had. I don't believe that my life is dedicated to corporate. So it's a very different kind of a thing. So I sit there and go, I'd like to be on the phone with you, Nina. And you're a Gen Zer going, I don't go on the phone, dude. Text me. Let me know what you want. Okay.
Yeah.
So very different. So 73% of people, according to research, say they are unengaged in their work. Part of it is the business system. Part of it is how they're being led. And part of it is the work's boring. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so compartmentalized and people are being paid to do the job they're paid to do, which is very, inside the box. They're not rewarded for creativity.
Well, how much of the work is rote? And the more it's rote, the easier you get bored quicker.
Yeah, true.
20% of people have enough resentment that they are actively, whether consciously or subconsciously, sabotaging the business.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this mean? What it means is companies talk about, we're going to do a culture change. Backwards. Change the system creates the culture.
Exactly.
So if you want a different culture, create a different system.
Yeah.
So if we move from a hierarchy to an ecosystem, what happens? In big companies where there's 30,000 employees, 100,000 employees, Dunbar's number says once you get past 150, you're not manageable anymore. In an ecosystem, you have peer-to-peer accountability. Why do you have middle layer of management? You have a middle layer of management more often than not said. It's just the accountability guy. Nina,
Yeah.
how's the project going? It's due next Wednesday. Do you think you'll get it done on time? That's all that is accountability and managing. No, no, no. If we're in an ecosystem and we have peer-to-peer accountability, we are self-managed. We discover more unknown unknowns. We uncover more unconscious biases. This is the way we've always done it. I've been here longer. This is how we do everything. Yeah, well, once you corporatize me, you've lost the genius that you hired.
That's right, because when they first arrive, they got fresh eyes and they bring a fresh approach, but they soon conform.
Well, not only that, but what they did is they hired you for your genius and your gifts and your reputation, but then they institutionalized you, so
Yes.
they depleted it out so you could fit in. So
Yeah.
you'd be acceptable,
Yeah.
right? So what happens? The people that don't get so institutionalized, they get terminated because
Or
they're
they leave,
out.
they jump ship.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So, we'll talk a little bit about the business system, but it's the ecosystem that basically works.
Yeah.
So now the C-suite can elevate much more strategically up top, right? So now when they create these strategic intents, and they should be meeting twice a month off site and have these days, maybe 2, 3 days of strategic intent.
Yeah.
Then when they come back and they meet with the teams go, hey, that's really great, but you didn't think about this, and what about this, and what about this? Because they were up here, they weren't
Yes.
in the day-to-day, and the day-to-day said, here's some of the nuances you might not be aware of. Now they go, oh, okay, we didn't factor that in. Now they go to the strategic intent number 2. That gets factored in, and they keep doing this. This is the iterative process for adaptive decision making, real-time decision making, data decision making, very different than what the 20th century was about.
Well, so what's the first step to getting an enterprise on that road?
It has to start at the top. And the biggest question for the C-suite leaders, what is your relationship to power?
Right. Is it a one-word answer or is it a treatise?
I would imagine for every C-suite leader, it's different.
Yeah.
Right? Some would say, well, just do as you're told. Some would say, I like having people being at each other's throat. I worked in a company where they loved that contentiousness. It was a gladiator style system, and let's see who emerges, right? There's others of them that are softer. There's others of them that are much more directive, right? There's others of them that seem to change leadership every 20 minutes. I don't mean 20 minutes really, but there are companies that'll have 5 leaders in 5 years. I worked in that environment as well. There's no stability in that. There's no continuity in that, right? So it's a question of, if you're at the top and you're used to telling people what to do, what happens when it flips and you're at the bottom? Now you're a coach. Now you're a mentor. Now you remove resistances. Now you actually listen and seek information from your teams so you can be better. You now move from untrusting to trusting. Top down is, I don't trust you, so I'm going to put in all these guardrails. That's why I have these silos, right? All of that kind of a thing. Well, now I have to change. Now I have to believe the people I hired for their genius actually have it.
And this requires emotional intelligence. It requires, this is all about the soft skills of empathy and, intentional communication and treating people with respect, psychological safety, all of those soft skills that really 20 years ago, we weren't even talking about that. Culture was not really on the agenda. It was results. And so we are moving gradually into this new dimension, which is lovely, but tricky.
Yep. So in a multidimensional world, we go from what I call the phenomenological. That is your lived experience. That's how you think. That's your belief system. That's how you behave with others. And underpinning all of that was achievement.
Yes.
We achieve results. We achieve market share. We achieve fill in the blank. In a multidimensional 21st century leader role, who am I being? It's the ontological, not the phenomenological. So the ontological is, how do I show up in a meeting? Do I dominate? Do I sit in the back? Am I comfortable with confrontation? Can I give someone constructive criticism? Do I just yell at them? How do I show up?
So that's
Right?
actually it's like a metacognitive approach to seeing yourself from outside. It's self-awareness of yourself, of your outside, looking in at your own behavior, or even being open to feedback from an observer about your own behavior.
Yes, it's that, but it's the inner journey.
Right.
Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
What are you? What are you becoming? Did we do any of that self-inquiry? A life unexamined is a life not worth living. The Delphiad Oracle, know thyself. See, Carl Jung, the privilege of a lifetime is to be who you truly are. Well, we'll teach you how to be a great finance person. We'll teach you how to be a great marketing person. We can teach you to be a great salesperson. And where did you go to school to learn to be the great leader? Not so much. Yeah. So
they teach you
now,
leadership theories, but I don't know. It's theoretical. It's not really behavioral.
well, not only that, it's situational. It's done by title. But
Yes.
here's the dirty little secret. If you had a room of 50 people, you had a Salesforce meeting, you have the CEO of the company, you have the national sales manager, and you have 50 sales reps. And within that, you would have some regional managers, some divisional managers, national managers. Who's the leader?
The CEO?
Yeah, that's what most people would say. Yeah. But that's not the right answer.
No.
The right answer is everyone in the room is leading all the time. And the
Exactly.
question is, to what? So you will have people that are sycophants. They will flatter people above them. You have people who will sit and nod like this. Nina, that's going to be such a great program. And the minute they go out the door, they tell everybody why it's not going to work. Then they have the obstructors. Then they have the gatekeepers. Then we have the people who sit in silence. But if we actually, as a leader, pulled out of them, they have amazing things to say. And a meeting would change dynamically and dramatically, not letting Nina sit in the back of the room and not talk until the last minute.
And that's
So,
why conversational equality is considered one of the attributes of an effective team. And it's up to managers to make sure that the people that are not speaking are actually asked their opinion, because that's where perhaps contrarian opinions that need to be considered get heard.
yeah. And so in a system, some people are allowed to have opinion and other people are, it's almost like children should be seen and not heard based on status. See, in a hierarchy, it's about status. Where am I in the pyramid? Yeah. Well, that's not really mining the gold, so to speak. So now, when people are told, we're going to have a meeting, but it's going to be a small team, not this huge thing, and I want everybody to participate, so no one gets to hide. I want your opinion, and they have to believe I really want their opinion, right? So when someone speaks, Nina, if I heard you correctly, it sounded like you were thinking about da 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 da. I kind of like that. Let's go a little bit further with that. Do you feel now that you're being heard? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to say.
Yeah. So now you're going to trust, not that they said we'd really like your opinion, but oh, that's ridiculous. No, we actually are going to start to, and then we might say, Nina, now that we've gone through it, I think there are some jewels here, but for right now, I think we're going to go with Bill's way to. But if you've been heard and you feel that you've been validated, you will hop in the boat and row with everybody else. If you
Exactly.
feel that no one even cared what you had to say, or they put you down for what you had to say, or you could tell they really weren't even interested to hear it, you're not in the boat. That's just human nature.
True.
Yeah. So, what is this idea of being a multi-dimensional leader? So, I'm going to share a slide or two for those of you who are just hearing the audio. In the show notes, there will be a link, and you can go and see the slides. And if you are in listening both the video and audio, then you'll have a couple of minutes to see what I'm up to. So basically, this first slide is a human being, and you see that how valuable the brain is. And then all of the sparks that are coming off of it is much more of a multi-dimensional feeling. So if you were to think about traditional leadership, you would think about the skills, like you're supposed to have social emotional intelligence. You're supposed to be empathetic. Traditional leadership in the United States is a $60 billion market, and 54 billion of it has no sustainable effect because they left out one thing. They
What's
told
that?
you authenticity. There's no framework for being an authentic leader. I'm going to give you one.
Right.
Okay. You're a servant leader. You know what happened to servant leaders? They ended up serving everybody but themselves, and they burn out and they fizzle out and they're done. So then they had to come back and say, well, if you're going to be a servant leader, you have to serve yourself first, right? We hear this in families all the time. Mom will sit and she'll give to everybody, but kind of forgets she needs to nourish and do herself, right? Same kind of thing in leadership. Then you're supposed to be a transformational leader. What does that mean? That means you're supposed to be charismatic. Well, what if you're an introvert? If you're an authentic introvert, that's a whole lot better than an inauthentic transformational charisma. Yeah?
Yeah.
So the problem is that when you're in a situation and your leadership is required, all you can do is mostly be in reactivity. Most people spend most of their life in reactivity, not in intentionality.
Yeah.
When you are authentic and you understand your emotions and you understand how they impact you, how you now react with others. So you went upstairs, you met with the CEO, he was really upset with you, criticized you horribly, and now you have to come back to your team. So do you come back and be the same monster the CEO was with your team and blame them? Or do you breathe and go, you know what, this is for me to hold. I can work with my team and say, you know what, I was up, I met with Bill or I met with Gene, and here's what they like about what's working. Here's what they don't like about what's working. How do we get this on board? And now I can be an inquirer of the team. And they don't have to know that, I got so upset I didn't know what to do. I had to come back and yell at them, right? Much more intention, much more positivity. It's not Pollyannish. It's me taking the time to integrate in my own experience. And then if I take it in and I'm stressed out and now I'm in fight, flight, freeze, and my executive function has shut down, I will invariably make bad decisions. So the one thing I know I want to do when I come out of a meeting like that is to have some time to myself to cool down, do some meditation, breathe, do some things, self-soothe, so that I can get my executive function and good decision-making back online. So I don't know, for most people, I'll read some of these for you. I've never seen these in leadership training. What is happening physically in your body? Is your chest open? Is your breathing easy? Is your body more constricted? Is your breathing shallow? What's going on with you? That's really important. What
Your
is the
breathing is very important. We need to breathe into the diaphragm, and people often haven't even heard of the diaphragm.
Yeah. Well, but you're not going to do that if you're triggered.
Yeah.
So when you look at your physical body sensations, one of the things is, are you triggered? And if you're triggered, what about that is happening? We talk about that a little more. So you have emotional body and feelings. You have mental thoughts and belief. The guy that just yelled at me reminds me of my dad, and he's totally irresponsible with his anger. Well, if that's what my belief is, I never saw him for who he was.
Yeah.
I never saw that maybe he was stressed out, that maybe he was fearful of what the board would say. He was fearful of the call that was going to happen, with Wall Street. There's all of these things that are unsaid and kept secret. But when those are elucidated out, I can now have empathy and understanding of why he was so upset. Our stock price could go down dramatically because we're going to miss the quarter. Okay, now I get it. But if nothing is said and I had no idea about that, I would go, he's just irresponsible.
True.
What is your relationship to spirituality? And by that, I mean, what is something bigger than you? How do you see energy? How do you see the universe? I don't mean what specific religion you are. It has nothing to do with that, right? So when we look at what adaptive behaviors and strategies would you need to have? What kind of personal history and memories do you have? Traumas that in business, when someone does something to you, it triggers subconsciously or consciously that trauma. That happened to me before. This is the same thing. No, it's not. It's different, right? So what kind of family and culture? How are you enculturated? So what are the culture norms that you're supposed to live by that tap down your authenticity, as opposed to saying, I don't need to do that. Do I need to be civil? Sure. But do I need to have no feelings because I'm a boy? No, I don't need to do that. So what are my ego needs, wants, and desires? Am I aware at all subconsciously of what goes on with me? These inner parts and voices I talked about. So there's this whole inner child idea. What did I give up or dissociate from me so that people would like me, so I would be acceptable in the family, I'd be lovable, and I wouldn't be abandoned? That's a really big deal of how you just react in how you meet with other people, right? What are
Big
the
one.
stories and narratives I tell myself, and what's the environment I'm playing in? I've not seen this in any of the styles, traits, or qualities of traditional leader development. This whole multi-dimension is, who are you as a human being? And you have lots of dimensions, and they show up at different times based on what's going on in your world. And then finally, how does this work? Well, it works in your thoughts are somewhat inherent to your belief system. So you have thoughts and beliefs. Those create behaviors. Those behaviors create your choices. Your choices create your experience. Your experience creates an emotion, and that emotion creates a memory. So that's a lot to take in. But how is it that a certain thought and belief, let's back up. So you have a particular experience. You're in the C-suite and you get this constructive criticism. The team is there. We all hear the CEO say exactly the same thing, right? We don't all react the same.
No.
Some people come out and they're devastated. Other people come out and go, he's just blowing off steam. Other people come out and go, there's certainly a nugget of truth in that, but I can also see that he has a sense of humor about it as well. So what is the lens by which we get to see the world? This is the key to me to ontological multidimensional leadership. When I understand my background and I understand how I was raised and the belief systems that were implanted into me, I now get to a present moment where I have choice. The present moment of choice is where my power exists. It doesn't exist in looking regrettably, shamefully, or in the past at all. And it doesn't help when I'm looking anxiously into the future that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, exactly. You can be anxious about the future, but that doesn't empower you at all.
No, and most of the time, we tend to create an anxiety and an anxiousness of a worst case scenario.
That's
right.
right. Exactly.
And most
Because
of
you
the-
know what?
most
It
of the
often
time it
isn't
doesn't
as bad
happen.
as you think it's going to be.
So this will be a little out there, but if you want to understand a multidimensional quantum world, the past, the present, and the future all exist together. And it's which thread do you want to pull? Let me say
Yeah.
that again. The past, the present, and the future all exist in the present moment. There is no, it's an illusion to think there is a past and a future and a present. They are inextricably bound into that second.
Yeah.
Which one are you going? It's like a deck of cards. Do you want to pull out the ace or do you want to pull out the two? The two is the past, the ace is the present moment, and an eight is the future. It's not easy being, I'm not saying this is easy, by the way. It's human.
It's philosophical, and not all leaders have come through even reading. Would you have to be reading philosophy to be able to be considering all these
Well,
inputs?
It's certainly helpful. So, for my background, just to give you a quick thing, I have a master's degree in leadership and coaching. I didn't get a traditional Stanford, Harvard, MIT leader program of what's your style, traits, and characteristics.
Mm.
My program were the great psychologists, so Freud, Jung, and Adler. My program included attachment theory. So how was I attached as a little boy? Did I have a secure attachment, an insecure attachment, an ambiguous attachment? It included humanism. So people like Fritz Perl and Gestalt, people like Viktor Frankl, right? So there's a whole Abraham Maslow, the psychology of needs, the levels of consciousness, and all of this. Then there were existential principles. So that was philosophical. People like Nietzsche and Sartre and Heidegger and that sort of thing. And then neuroscience to understand that our beliefs and our thoughts, what fires together, wires together, but we have neuroplasticity in our brain. If we change our thoughts and we repeat that enough, the old patterns leave and new patterns get replaced. So I have some processes for doing that that actually will literally rewire your brain in 45 minutes.
At this point, because we are continuing on, it's not an end. This is a long form episode. We'll go for about 48 minutes. At this point, to what extent in your leader council do you explore these aspects of the cells?
Yep. So in the leader council, this is a program I have two of them. One is a leader council for C-suite leaders.
Yeah.
And the core here is to move you from the reason you got to the C-suite. You might be highly political and really adept, but I think most people get there because of the brilliance, excellence, and ability to execute a functional expertise. You're great at marketing. You're a great sales guy. That's why you're the national sales manager, right? You're a great marketing person. You become the CMO. You were great as a controller. Now you can become a CFO. And we teach you and you repeat over and over skill set. We do the same thing in the Leader Council. There's 13 modules of leader training of all of these kinds of things I'm talking about, right? So what's the language of leadership? The first module is tell me your story, answer the question, who am I and what am I? Tell me, where do you operate in bad faith? In other words, where do you blame others and where do you play the victim? And then tell me your relationship to spirituality. Those
Well, a lot of
things,
C-suite people are not used to being asked, what's your relationship to spirituality, apart from if they are actually religious people who perhaps visit a church of any denomination.
Yeah, but Nina, the spirituality has nothing to do with organized religion.
Right.
It has to do with energy. And in a multi-dimensional world, energy matters. So we're going to look at energy, right? We're going to look at, can you think of something bigger than yourself? That is a spiritual realm. That is Maslow's self-actualization to the next level.
Yeah.
So we want to move there because if you have a relationship to this bigger idea, then how you treat people, wanting to see that their potential, just like yours being realized, that's my relationship to spirituality. My company is Intellikey. It's that embedded in each of us, which is the genius, gift, and artistry we're here to deliver. So as a leader, I am wearing all the time one of those miner's lights so that I can shine a path. I'm adept enough to see who you are, what your potential is, and that light shines a path, and I put you on it so that you realize your potential. How many managers did you have that could speak to that? Not many.
I love that metaphor, and it's enabling people to move into their true destiny, their right livelihood and true destiny.
Exactly. And when I start to see the brilliance, genius, and gift in others, guess what? I get to see it in myself.
Exactly.
And now I can also, we all experience, this is the collective that I believe is missing in the world of zero-sum game. That's the three-dimensional world. I win, you lose, I get promoted, you don't. This is a whole different way of acting. And so I think it's really important. And then the other part of it is that we will work with you on your business issues. So coming out of global billion-dollar, publicly traded, multinational companies, having done global turnarounds of brands, having done 5 startups, having a tech background with EDS and Oracle, having a consulting background in McKinsey methodology and A.T. Kearney, I've seen a lot of movies. But then we also have other people who come in with business expertise that you get the benefit of. So it's a very dynamic environment. So that's one council. And the other council that I have is what I'm calling the leader operating system. And this is where we work with vice presidents, managers, directors, people who aspire to the C-suite. We get you earlier. What happens out of that is you become more trustworthy, you become more authentic, you become more approachable, you get more money, you get promoted more often, you are seen as a person to lead high visibility projects. And the best thing is people in the company hear about you and they talk to HR, I want to work with Dan.
That's your reputation going before you. Mm.
Yeah. So this is very dynamic. I think I don't know anybody else doing something similar. I know a lot of people doing traditional leader development. Save your money, because what works is you and your own personal growth. I've done men's work and personal growth for 40 years. I've worked with more than 20,000 people. And my gift in working with you is to see a lot of things within you that you may not have seen yourself. You may have grown up in a house, you won't amount to anything. Why aren't you more like your brother? You're not really worthy, right? Belief systems. So when we grow up from 2 to 10, we're in what they call theta brainwave.
Yeah.
Theta is what they do for hypnosis. And whatever, you know how kids can learn 3 languages in 10 minutes when they're 6 years old? They're in theta, and whatever gets downloaded,
Oh,
it works. So
right.
what's your relationship to money? Money's dirty, money's bad. People with money take advantage of others. God gave us what we're supposed to have. There's all these things. Now, Nina, go out in the world and become really successful around money. It's a near impossibility because subconsciously you were told money's bad. So
Right.
now we take those beliefs and we elevate them into new beliefs. Money gives me opportunity. Money gives me a chance to give to the kind of causes that I want to make a difference in the world. Money allows me to set up a 501c3 and create a school in Africa. You know, money gives me, come up with, I just did an exercise this week, 100 ways I have gratitude for money. 100 ways. Guess what? My subconscious now is taking that, and it will, when you look at how your life shows up, it is your subconscious mind and beliefs that create the external world.
Exactly. In fact, if you have limiting beliefs, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it blocks out opportunities that were there.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've ever looked at going down a highway and you go, you know what, I think I'd like to buy a Porsche. And you buy the Porsche, and the next thing, every Porsche on the road you see. But before, when you were driving a Chevrolet, right, you never saw the Porsches. They were never there. Or I want a red car, but I have a black car. I never noticed how many red cars, but now that I have one, I see every one of them, right? So those are car brands, by the way, for the United States. If you're not in the United States, it might be a BMW, it might be a Mercedes, it might be a Land Rover, it might be, I don't know.
In Australia, it could be the Holden.
Might even be a Rolls Royce. So this, pardon me, this multi-dimensional way of looking at the world gives you a bigger life. It gives you more self-acceptance, more self-love, more ability to see things in others that you wouldn't ordinarily see. We live in a world of what's called mimetic desire. Mimetic desire is I mimic, as a child, I mimic mom and dad, family, school, right? I do all this mimicry. So is it really my desire to have all these fancy cars and a trophy wife or a trophy husband and have a corporate job and have all of this because that's what I see as successful? Or do I want to be more authentic and go, you know what? I would be happy being a college professor. I'm not going to be a CEO of $1 billion multinational. So again, they're not going to have something that they've never been given.
Mm.
And I think one of the things, another multi-dimension of a business today, you have to have some elasticity in your thinking that you're going to need to train these generations. They are not coming prepared the way previous generations were. It doesn't mean they don't have the clay to be molded. It just means they were raised in a different environment. And some of them will be willing and others of them won't. Because if status is taken away, then
Yes.
there's more of an equality, and there's more of an engagement, and there's more you talk about psychological safety.
Mm.
I trust that you value who I am and what I have to say, and I do the same for you. And you will see vulnerability grow up. You'll see innovation grow up. You'll see a better decision making happen. You'll see quicker decision making. All of those things will dynamically change your space in a marketplace. You will be far exceeding your competition.
Dan Silberberg, it's always wonderful speaking with you. And we are coming to the end of our time for this episode. And
Perfect.
I appreciate you making this time because it's a very interesting exploration. And of course, if you want to work with Dan, the details will be in the show notes, and he is on LinkedIn, and he's got his website, which is entelechy.ai.
Yep.
And let's spell it for people.
Yeah, it's E like Edward, NTELECHY.AI. Entelechy.ai.
It's an Aristotelian term, is that right? From Aristotle?
It's from Aristotle, and the whole idea behind entelechy is that within an acorn, implanted in its entelechy is growth to become an oak tree. Not every acorn becomes an oak tree. Your entelechy is embedded in you as a human being, just like your DNA. Some people will rise to become, and others won't. So you can stuff it, you can avoid it, you can sabotage it, but you can't get rid of it. It's in there, and with the right training, assistance, commitment of someone to help, it will flourish. Just like watering the garden, the flowers flourish.
Absolutely, Dan. Well, it's your true destiny that you're bringing out for people, and I appreciate that this is your true destiny. Thank you so much, Dan Silberberg.
It's my privilege. Thank you, Nina.
We've been speaking with the amazing Dan Silberberg on the Manage Self-Lead Others podcast for experienced and aspiring managers to elevate their leadership and reshape culture by keeping up to date with trends in self-leadership, leading people, and also the evolution of their personal self. My name is Nina Sunday. See you next time.